It was an absolute nightmare. For a second there, I didn't know if we'd stay married.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justin.
And I'm Paige.
And today we're going to talk about the time we spent in Disney World for 2 full weeks.
And in this video, we're going to give you a full tour of the campground, and we're going to talk about whether it's worth the price to actually stay at Fort Wilderness.
Because it is fairly pricey.
So when we decided we wanted to RV full time, Disney World was somewhere we really wanted to make sure that we hit.
Yeah, it was actually a major location that we wanted to go to. I had actually never been in my entire life.
Yep, he'd never been. I'd been multiple times with my family and I had a lot of good memories there, but it'd been something like 20 years since I'd been. So I thought it would be fun to take Justin to his first time at Disney World and to spend 2 full weeks there in an RV that was also our home.
Those of you that have gone, you do know it's a pretty major expense between parks and food and especially hotels, especially if you're staying on resort. So we'd already been traveling along the Gulf Coast. That was what our plan for wintering was, following the I-10 corridor, and then we decided to head down to Clearwater to see some friends, and from there we just headed up to Disney World. It was actually a pretty short hop for us.
It would have been. It was a stop and go day.
Yeah.
What'd you think, Ratface? Pretty cool, huh? Oh, he's settling down. Oh, that was a car. There's a truck. Wow.
Yeah, one thing I will say about coming in to Disney, everything's themed as you drive in. The things were really well labeled. I didn't even need my GPS to get us to the campground. And the campground itself is very well organized as people check in.
Fort Wilderness has a total of 847 campsites. Now, not all of those are RV sites.
Yeah, they do have primitive camping, tent camping, things like that. I don't believe that even includes the cabins. Of this filming, those are gone. They're actually selling them off. So if you're in Florida, they're actually a pretty good deal if you want a cabin. But those are now going over to the Disney Vacation Club. So they're completely redoing those and bringing in different units.
Yeah, that's their timeshare program.
Yeah. But with, almost 900 sites for RVs, there are lots of arrivals and departures. So they have this down to an art. They have lots of check-in lanes. If you come early, you can actually go to their overflow parking. If your site isn't available, they'll text you when it's ready. If you need to leave late, you can just stay at their overflow parking and leave when you need to. So they have it down to, like I said, just a science. It was probably the best check-in experience I've ever had.
I would say so, and even in the nasty weather, it was a breeze. The unhook and rehook spots were really cool too.
Yeah.
For the toads, they had it on the side. We could just pull over and unhook to get in.
Yep, so as you came in, there were pull-off sites where you can get in, and I highly suggest you do so. One of the things we really found as we arrived in the rain was this is the tightest campground I've ever been in. A lot of people bring multiple vehicles because they're bringing their family or extended family and things like that. While they do patrol and make sure people are in the road, we did have multiple people in the road as we came on as well. And the roads are not wide either. There is just enough room for an RV to drive down them.
This was our first fight we ever had backing into the spot.
It was just really hard to get a good approach angle because all the roads are curved with the extra cars on the road. It was really hard just to kind of cheat and angle into the spot. It took me probably about 5 or 10 minutes. It took me probably about 3 goes to get our RV back in. We
had some miscommunication.
Yep.
We came pretty close to hitting major stuff, but
Oh yeah, I almost backed into one of their site markers. Luckily they're wood, and they actually were replacing them while we were there anyway. So it wouldn't have been a huge deal, but it is probably the first thing I have come that close to hitting.
It was an absolute nightmare.
The sites are so close, but at least we're still married now.
At least we're still married. At least For a second there, I didn't know if we'd stay married.
It wasn't like a drag down knockout fight, but we were just not, with the rain and having gone through stop and go traffic, and then to get to a site that was just that tight is very trying for the best of people.
Yes, the check-in experience was wonderful. The backing in was probably the most stressful that we had.
But once you're in, it was great.
As far as the actual campground, was it worth the hefty price tag? Well, let's give you a tour. So the first thing I'll show you is our RV site. I'll walk around our site. You see we could fit our 32-foot Class C and our 2-door Jeep. Kind of walking around. There's not much room between the sites, but the trees help give it a sense of privacy. And then back here we have a picnic table and a grill, and we're backed up right against these woods. And we've got this whole wooded area behind. And to the side, basically on all sides but the road. Bunch of kind of palm trees. Another view of the nice picnic table. This little area here. As you can see, we could fit our bikes in the backyard, even with everything else. I want to say this site we got was one that you can also put a tent in. That's kind of how Disney markets it. You can see we had that room back there. This is the utility side. Again, not a ton of room, but we made it work. And the trees afford some privacy. Sites are close together, but they're decently long. Kind of a tough angle of approach, though. You see the road out here isn't terribly wide. Okay, so this is some footage that we took of the park. We're actually on our e-bikes. This is a GoPro strapped to Justin's bike. And sorry about the slight tip in the angle. We didn't have a way to tell, but you get an idea from this. Kind of see our road and how many people were here. Again, it's not the tightest road in the world, but for some of the big rigs, it can be hard to navigate, hard to pull in your sight, especially if someone is parked in the road, if you've got a golf cart out there. Disney does a pretty good job on cracking down on that, on not letting people park in the road, because frankly, sometimes people can't get into their spots if that happens. So here we are, just kind of driving around that 200 loop we were in. The 100 and 200 loops are pretty close to the settlement area of the park, which is where the restaurant is, as well as the boat to Magic Kingdom and a nice hiking and biking trail. So yep, we're just kind of coming around. And here we are coming out on the main road to head up to settlement. I'm going to stop at the stop sign here. It's important if you're on a bike anywhere, but especially in Fort Wilderness, or specifically in Fort Wilderness, if you're on a bike, to obey all traffic laws, because you are essentially like a golf cart or a car when you're in Fort Wilderness. Actually, the posted speed limit on these roads is 20 miles an hour. And that's about as fast as we can go on the bike, and it's very similar to a golf cart on an e-bike. So for all intents and purposes, if you are on an e-bike in Fort Wilderness, which at the time of this filming they allowed, they've gone back and forth, you're basically able to maneuver and act like a golf cart. In fact, here is the path that's set off for golf carts to go to and from settlement. And we are biking down it. This is the path off on the left. You kind of probably glimpsed the one on the right as we came in. That's the walking path for pedestrians. But because we are on a vehicle, we are taking the one for golf carts. You see, they put the bars up so people don't drive their cars down here, because they do not want that. So this down here is the settlement area. Right there is kind of a playground area. Off to the left is where the restaurant is. Up here on the right, there is actually a convenience store that has a lot of the essentials. And the Magic Kingdom is kind of off as well. But here we are. This is the bike path that's behind the convenience store in the settlement area. We decided we wanted to go check it out. And yes, you can hike on it as well. Bike or hike. And yeah, so we came up to the end here and we paused. I noticed that we had a lovely view of Space Mountain. That gives you an idea of how close we were to the Magic Kingdom. It was really something special. So I would recommend doing this bike trail if you've got an e-bike or you're a hiker and you're in Fort Wilderness, because it is spectacular. And here's another shot of the roads, the main roads in the park. where, you know, you wait for buses, you drive cars, all of that, and obviously golf carts and bikes are allowed on this drag. This is us just kind of riding back to our campsite. And you can see a little playground area on the right. There are tons of little playground and recreation areas for the kids all throughout the park, even if you aren't necessarily in Settlement or Meadowview, kind of the big recreation clusters. And see there on the left, they're one of those bus shelters, those brown ones. That's where you wait for kind of the interpark transit. And then there's a transit hub near Settlement and one at the park entrance where you can grab buses to the other hotels and the other theme parks, you know, Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom, Epcot, etc., in addition to the Magic Kingdom boat down in the Settlement area. So there's a lot of good transit areas. Oh look, more bikers. Yay. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of what the park roads and layout are, especially in the upper loop area where we stayed near Settlement. So Fort Wilderness has a lot of these little buildings called comfort stations, and this is where your laundry and your restroom and showers are. Look at this, they got a payphone. That's how you know they haven't really changed a lot since the 70s. So I thought I'd show you the laundry area. There you go, coming in. As you can see, it's a little dated. They've obviously, for better or for worse, kept it the way it was originally. There's some charm in that. Very busy laundry area. You see somebody's shirt is all laid out there. Older machines. They do have quite a few of them. There's 5 there. They've got a water fountain. This is the area where you pay. You use your card. With this instructions plaque on the wall there. And you've got all of these dryers here. A little view out the window. You can see more of that foliage you saw on the site walk around. But here are a bunch of dryers. It is pretty pricey to wash and dry in Disney. The prices will change, but when I recorded this, it was not cheap. And here they have some soap that you can buy from this vending machine with a card. So this is the other part of the comfort station. It's the restroom. So you're going to have, you know, facilities for people who are camping in tents or don't have that within their RVs. You got the stalls here. Again, kind of dated, but clean, reasonable. Bunch of bathroom stalls, sinks, mirrors. You come back here and I'll show you the showers. Yeah, pretty standard campground showers. I will say one nice thing about Fort Wilderness is that there isn't just one shower house or even just a couple. These comfort stations are located all over the place. They're pretty much shared by, oh gosh, maybe 15 or 20 campers. The ratio is very, very good. It's the best ratio I've ever seen at a campground, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, pretty standard. Good quantity, I would say. Good ratio. And they do have a changing table. And here's just a quick video I filmed of the office one night when Justin and I were in there doing something. And now it's time for the most important review of all. It's Ratface's review. So this is interesting. We had just gotten to Fort Wilderness, and as you can see, Ratface is raring to go. Now, you may be able to see a little bit on this video, but it was raining. He's a cat. Look how excited he is to explore our site. Tells you a lot. Obviously, as far as nearby attractions, you're right next to Disney World.
Yep.
Like that's kind of the whole point of staying at this.
Yes. And you are closest to, Disney World, especially with all the inner park transportation, etc. So that's what you're going to be seeing, really, when you stay here.
And we got one of the settlement sites. When you're looking online to book, the settlement sites are the ones that are closest to the outpost and the boat that goes right to the Magic Kingdom.
Yep.
So the first day we hit up Magic Kingdom, because I wanted Justin to have the quintessential Magic Kingdom experience.
I mean, that is Disney World to a lot of folks, obviously. I mean, if you want to go see Mickey, that's where you're going.
Yeah. It was pretty hectic, wasn't it, the first day?
It was actually. When I booked this time, I had not considered that was a holiday.
No, me neither.
Within the U.S. And so we went that first day, and it was the most crowded park day that we had while we were there.
Yes. I will say that was the day that we didn't do the Genie Plus package.
Yeah, we didn't understand it yet. We didn't actually know what it was all about and how to get it. I thought I had time, and I apparently did not.
But because of my experience having gone before, it was 20 years ago, I had never had Genie Plus or any of that stuff in the past, and I had to figure out how to do the order of the lines. We kind of used the free estimates and my knowledge of Disney World, and we had pretty decent waits. We had a long time at Haunted Mansion. That was the long wait, but we got to see pretty much everything we wanted to see. So the second day, we decided we would hit Epcot.
The experimental prototype city of tomorrow. Originally designed to essentially be a company town in Disney. It's actually really interesting because it has some of the old trappings of the educational things that they were trying to do and the World's Fair, but Disney has slowly been bringing on character experiences and more of their property onto there because they need a place to put some of their property.
So it used to be my favorite park because of the World Fair Cultural Expo and frankly the geeky stuff. I'm a huge geek.
As am I.
But because they're kind of going with what people want, which is more of the Magic Kingdom experience, trying to get those numbers up, I think it's less geared towards me, and it's also seeming more confused in identity, so I didn't actually enjoy it as much as I used to. I was actually a little disappointed.
And some of it was hard to navigate through because those areas are not meant to take the number of people that are traveling through them, so it was the Norway area that they had put the frozen characters, and even the topiaries and stuff, because we went during their flower festival, even the topiaries they had, there were lines to take pictures with it. You couldn't navigate through it for all the strollers that were around.
It was spilling out in the street, because usually the Norway was kind of a niche, geeky, cultural ride. It used to be one of my favorites, so there wasn't really a line.
Yeah, that was just insane to get through. I think that kind of soured me a little bit as we were going through Epcot trying to get through that.
But we still had fun.
Yeah, I mean, luckily right after that, you started to walk through Mexico, and there were margaritas.
Oh yeah, that little cart outside of the pyramid there, not anything inside the pyramid, but the cart outside.
Just the stand.
The stand in Mexico. Excellent margaritas.
Yep.
Really good service, excellent margaritas. Yep, recommend highly. Not sponsored. Okay. Then we headed to the Animal Kingdom, which my family wasn't even going to hit Animal Kingdom. They had a limited number of days. They weren't excited. It ended up being like a surprisingly great day for us.
Yeah, we actually had a really good time at Animal Kingdom. We just happened to be around the Tree of Life, the big centerpiece there, and all of a sudden I had a macaw buzz my head as we were sitting there. So I followed the macaw to go see what was going on. And several times a day they do a show of these macaws that they have trained to free fly around the park. And it was really actually kind of magical.
And I think that day we did use a Genie Plus pass because the safari was really busy.
Yes.
But we ended up being able to do that. So Justin has been to South Africa for work. He went for a month 10 years ago. And you were saying it was surprisingly the same spirit as the real thing.
So I didn't go on like a bush safari, but this was a wildlife sanctuary. I think it was about an hour and a half drive from Cape Town. So they had this just really large sanctuary with all sorts of elephants and lions. It wasn't obviously exactly the same because it is Disney, but it had a very similar feel, which I thought was really kind of fascinating that they were able to capture that kind of feel to it. So hats off to them.
After we did those 3 big park days, we spent some days resting and recuperating, kind of getting our energy back up.
There were a couple of rainy days in there, and they just kind of ended up being, a good resting point for us. We had picked up some con crud from the children running around Magic Kingdom as well.
I had blisters.
Yeah, had blisters. So
we were walking, 10-15 miles a day?
Upwards of 20. So we just kind of took it easy for a couple days since nature was kind of telling us to just chill for a minute. One of our off days, we did actually end up going out. I had previously, with a software company I worked at, been down to Orlando. I'd just never been to Disney. They had bought out Universal one night, which was really interesting. But we'd always gone out with our clients and stuff to City Walk, specifically to like the bars and things around there, because it was one of the good nightlife things around there. So I decided to take Paige down to kind of see where I had some of those experiences, because she'd heard all about this, had never actually been to City Walk.
So he got to play tour guide to me. I was playing tour guide the first 3 days, and then he got to do it back.
Which was kind of fun because we were on the tail end of Mardi Gras, and so they had all sorts of events going on through there. We got to experience Rising Star. We went to Cowfish, which is a fusion burger sushi bar, which was a lot of fun. And yeah, just kind of take that in as well. So it was kind of a fun date night.
Yeah. So my family actually came down and they met us. We did Disney Springs and Hollywood Studios.
Yep.
My brother has gone with my mom a lot, so he had some novel suggestions, and one of the things that he booked that we really liked was Space 220. I would say that was the other really excellent food we had at Disney. Their desserts were incredible.
Whoever they have being a pastry chef.
Hi, Ratface.
Can I help you, Ratface? But whoever they have making cocktails and being a pastry chef was just superb. Yes. Honestly. Very unique presentations, excellent flavors. It wasn't your overly sweet dessert type of things. It actually reminded us more of the European style that we've had on cruise ships.
Yeah, we've done some Holland American cruises, and they have that very traditional cruise dining experience. It was very reminiscent of that.
So it's kind of like fruity flavors and some more complex flavors, but amped up with like the space themes and the bright colors and things like that, which was fun.
Yeah, it was like being on 10 Forward and on Star Trek.
I mean, again, huge nerd, so it was really fun to just kind of play along and see what it was going to be like. The animation wall that they have going on for the windows was amazing. If you have a fear of heights, when you get in the elevator, I would suggest not looking up and down, because it's actually fairly convincing when you see it with all the things that they have hooked up to make you feel like you are going to space.
It's like a fake launch. It's totally fun. And we liked it so much we went back.
We did decide to spend some time at Universal with Paige's family. Like I said, I had been for a work function. We had bought out the Harry Potter world and one other area for our clients. I had been kind of through there, but you had never been.
I had never been. And, you know, I've read the Harry Potter books. I read a lot. I'm a writer. They're not my favorite books, to be honest. But something about the way that they did the worlds at Universal, they're so beautiful and they're so immersive that I spent a long time just kind of walking around and hanging out in them, and it was really beautiful.
So Universal doesn't do great with what Disney does with the sightlines between like their worlds and things like that, except somebody actually paid attention in school and did it for the Harry Potter worlds.
The Harry Potter worlds are the best part of the park.
Yep.
Just as far as how they designed it and the sense of immersion.
It was pretty cool. I mean, for Universal.
It was pretty cool for Universal. My family, they were only there for a few days. They were kind of flying down really quickly and going back just over a long weekend. My nephew's in high school, so they were trying to do that. So after my family went back to Maine, we had an extra park day. And the Epcot Garden Festival was still going on, where they had food and the beautiful topiaries. So we kind of looked at each other and we went, Epcot date night.
Yep. I think we walked around the World Lagoon 3 times.
3 times. I want to say we had like filet mignon and scallops from a Le Cellier food booth.
Yep.
We had a number of wonderful cocktails.
Yep.
And we went back to Space 220.
Yes.
It was wonderful. We stayed till the fireworks and everything. We've shown you the park. We talked about our experience and the nearby attractions. Was it worth the price? So we'll start with the pros. Obviously, it's really close to Disney World. That's why you come here. The biggest pro is that this campground is next to Disney World. Simple.
Which actually leads into our second point, which is especially if you are down in the early hundreds of the different loops, you're extremely close to the water transportation, which can get you between multiple of the resorts and directly to the Magic Kingdom.
Yep.
So we were able to walk within less than 10 minutes from our site to the dock, and within 20 minutes, 30 minutes, be at the Magic Kingdom gates.
It was awesome, and the boat ride was awesome too.
And actually from there you can take the monorail to a bunch of other places.
Yep. So another pro, you could see that the landscaping at our site, they actually did really well. Remember we were talking about Disney and the sight lines a little bit earlier? They worked with sight lines when it comes to the sites.
Yep.
So they were tight, they were close together, but it didn't feel that way because of all the shrubbery and forest around you.
And foliage and everything. Yeah, they had so much of the natural foliage and trees and everything growing there, and they kept it well trimmed and everything, but it made you feel like that was just your little world.
Well, there was only one time that we were really aware that we had neighbors, and it was when they had the birthday party the one day.
I'm sure we'll get down to that one of the cons. The hookups were actually really, really nice. I wasn't quite sure what to expect. In Florida, they require anti-backflow valves, and most campgrounds cheap out with some of the cheap brass and plastic ones. Disney had industrial backflow valves that didn't fight with our pressure regulator for once. But otherwise, all the hookups were great. The black hose area was actually in almost like a sink, so you could wash everything down, which was really cool. They had multiple hose spigots. Everything was just really well put together. The site had obviously been washed down and swept just before we had gotten there. So overall, like, the utilities and the cleanliness of the sites were amazing.
And kind of pivoting to the next pro, the campground in general was well maintained. It was everything that Justin said about the sites, but also outside of our site on all the main roads. Maintenance was always working on stuff. They replaced a bunch of stuff while we were gone one day, and it was just there when we came back. There was always security out front, and when we had some issues with the gate, they were really friendly about it, while making sure that it was safe and that the right people were in there. It was very unobtrusive.
Yeah, my magic band had magically stopped working to get us in the campground, and they were able to verify me and let me in. So the next one is we had great customer service while we were there.
Yep.
We actually did have a good number of packages come in because we were going to be there for several weeks. They have a handling fee, so make sure you ask about it before you do get packages sent to Disney.
They were really helpful when I needed to talk to somebody about ticketing. Just great customer service. So another pro was, even though we were right next to Disney World and it was pretty built up around there, there was still lots of wildlife.
Yeah, there are lots of lizards and birds, very few mosquitoes and bugs, surprisingly, so they must be doing something with that. But Ratface certainly enjoyed chasing lizards once or twice.
Yeah.
So, and this is kind of funny, but if you like kind of hokey little shows, every night at each of the resorts along the water, there is a boat light show. And from our campsite, we could hear it. So we knew exactly what time it was. But it's just this really cute these little light grids that they have on boats that come out and play music. And it's just kind of fun.
And the final pro is that the on-site restaurant was really good and really affordable.
Yeah.
Really easy.
It was fairly basic. You know, you got pizza and chicken and sandwiches and stuff like that. But it was...
The prices were really reasonable and the portions were big, and they had online ordering. And we could literally, because we were in that 100, 200 area, we could just walk up and get it when we were tired. It was really nice.
Yeah, it was useful.
All right, so those are all the upsides. So what are the cons?
So it's expensive.
Yeah.
Disney is not going to give you a break on staying there weekly or monthly. They don't want you to stay weekly or monthly. And in fact, they have on-demand pricing. And so some of your nights are going to be more expensive than other nights, even though you're booking for an entire stay.
Yep. And our days were different prices depending on what week we were there and all that. I want to say it ranged from $170 to $200 depending on what night when we stayed there, and it could be less or more, probably more when you book it.
Yes.
But yeah, average about $200 a night, which isn't bad for Disney, to be honest, to be there in your house, but very expensive for an RV park, the most we've ever spent. Yeah.
I will say for Florida, it is remarkably similar to a lot of other parks that we're seeing, and if you are looking at something like even Key West, less expensive. And I did price out a similar accommodation to what we are typically used to when we travel in some of the resorts, and it ranged anywhere from about $300 to $500 a night in a lot of the resorts for the same time period that we were staying.
In the hotel, you mean?
For the hotels.
For the hotel rooms, and for the Disney hotel rooms. So, and staying on property is just a lot more convenient with the transportation. The second big con was the site was really tight and really hard to get into. I can't imagine that being your first park as a beginner and trying to do that, try to back an RV into that.
Pretty sure I saw a few folks that was their first time getting in. Now, if you have a smaller RV, great, but if you're not confident with your, especially if a trailer, your back-end skills, and even a larger Class C or Class A, I would highly suggest just getting used to that first before you do that kind of thing. I did actually have a friend who brought their trailer down, and they actually had to go back up and move sites because somebody had partially blocked the road and they just weren't able to get a good angle to back into their first site.
Yeah, and I mean, it was stressful for us. We've been on the road for a year, and it was definitely the most stressful back-end we've had. Yep,
and I'm sure there are going to be other parks that have even tighter spots than that, but it's not ones that we've stayed at. So
we also saw a lot of people that rented RVs.
Yes.
Or they had services that delivered them to the site.
That was actually something that I had not really seen much advertised for. I'm not sure what the company is, and I'm probably not going to advertise them here anyway. But I did see one company that on the same day delivered 3 or 4 different RVs to sites and walked people through them, and then came and picked them up after their stay. And they must have a deal with Disney because they were picking them up before and after normal check-in times, etc. So
if you know the name of the company, you can drop it in the comments, or a company that does that.
So another con, this is mostly for people that aren't used to living with kids, is the kids are at Disney World.
Yeah.
They're gonna be excited.
Yes.
Aside from even being in the parks and things like that, especially during the day and even into the afternoon and evening, the kids can be really, really loud. They can be screaming their fool heads off because it's 3 p.m. and they need a nap, etc. Or you can be like us and get lucky and have an 8-year-old's birthday party at the spot right next to yours in the afternoon.
Yep. So that is the con of being at Disney World, period, and it does extend to the campground to a certain extent. It's not as bad as the parks.
Yes.
I will say it was a lot more peaceful than the parks most of the time.
Yeah. And really, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that bad. We're usually fine to let kids scream their heads off in the wilderness, because where else are they going to do it?
Yeah, exactly. And the last con is really nitpicky, but it needs to be said. Laundry is expensive and the machines are kind of old. Ratio was good to number of campers.
It seemed like each loop had their own, what did they call them?
Comfort stations.
Comfort stations, yes. Which had bathrooms and showers and laundry areas. And it's also a place that is air conditioned, so especially during the summer you can get out of the heat if you're tent camping.
But you saw them on the video tour I gave you. They're dated. They look the same as they did in the 70s, for better or for worse. So Justin, taking the pros and cons together, what would you say the bottom line is?
I would say, especially for somebody full-timing, this is a great way to stay at Disney.
Yeah.
We basically had our home with us at the end of the day when we were exhausted.
Oh my gosh.
From dodging kids and being in the heat and the sun and
walking 20 miles.
Walking 20 miles. It was great to come home and have all of the things that we were used to, have our cat, be able to just collapse into our bed. I would say just that was worth it, not even counting the fact that it is a decent amount less for the same accommodation versus like one of the on-resort hotels.
It's all about Disney, though. I wouldn't go there if I wasn't going to Disney.
Oh, no, that would not be the smart move.
No.
Now, well, are we in a hurry to get back?
Oh, that's the other question, because it was your first time. Yep. So that's the other question is, what did you think of Disney? When would you go back?
I would probably go back eventually. I know a lot of people go every year, and that is their vacation. For me, there are so many other things to see while we're doing this that I'm not in a hurry to go back, but I'm glad it is an option, and I hope that Disney keeps it around.
Yes, definitely.
So that's been our experience with camping at Fort Wilderness at Disney. I'm sure lots of others have done so as well. So if you have some opinions or even some secrets to share with us for our next day, let us know. I'd be happy to hear from you.
And we recently did another video on the 10 things we wish we'd known before we went to Fort Wilderness. Check that video out as well. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.